Today we meet Lisa Donohue, the MD of Kerb Foods social enterprise arm. She shares her journey from a marketing and PR background to leading a social enterprise focused on empowering individuals through food and hospitality. Lisa elaborates on the coaching programs designed to help individuals from various backgrounds gain employment and start their own businesses in the food hospitality sector, as well as training the actual business owners too. The conversation also touched on the importance of community, cultural diversity, and future expansion plans for Kerb Foods, including their recent venture into Berlin. I hope you enjoy. Lisa, hi, and welcome to Swim Against the Tide.
Very much. Nice to meet you, and thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Really interesting one, this. And then obviously when we've been planning, we've realised that there's some links with your business and some of my other guests. So that's going to be exciting to talk about that. When I find out, make sure they mentioned you in their story. That's the bit we're going to have to double check. So look, what would be fantastic is just so everybody who's out there listening or watching knows a little bit about your background, about how you've ended up as MD at Kerb, and then we can really start to explore that journey, but also the amazing job that you do at Kerb Foods.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to kind of give you the brief intro into all the things I've done, and then we could unpack it as we go, I guess. But yes,
Perfect.
I'm the Managing Director of Kerb Social Enterprise. I've been in the business for almost 4 years, it'll be 4 years in May, and took up the role of MD in April, May last year. So in the role for almost a year now. I was actually the second employee in the social enterprise part of the business. It was formed in May 2022, and I came along just after that, basically.
And told to build this.
Told to build this, exactly, yeah. So
there's a brief for you, yeah.
Exactly. Been in it from the beginning, which has been obviously a real privilege and a joy, and it's something I'm extremely passionate about. So hopefully it comes across that it's quite easy for me to talk about it just because I love it so much. But how I got there is quite an interesting story, I suppose, I hope, for you guys listening. So alongside that, I'm also a qualified and practicing humanistic integrative counsellor. So
Go on, you have to explain a bit more of that to a thick northern lad as to what that is. It sounds exciting.
I'm basically a therapist, talking therapies, trained and qualified in the last 5 years or so, and have been practicing for nearly 2 years now. So one day of my week, I am doing that, and the rest of my week, I am working for Kerb. And there's obviously a real sweet spot where those skills and experience complement the work that we do within the social enterprise, which I guess will become obvious as we speak. But feel very lucky that I've been able to sort of marry my passion for food and all things therapy and supporting others and helping people to, you know, change their lives and access opportunities is, just a brilliant place to be. And I feel very lucky and fortunate to do it.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Before all of that happened, I worked in marketing and PR for something like 15, 18 years. I've also had my own street food business.
Is that the link? Was that what opened your eyes up to this world, you think?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that was around 2011, so quite a long time ago now, and definitely a different age in terms of what the street food industry looks like, I think, but was, albeit a passion project for me, a real eye-opener at the time in terms of, you know, what you can do through the power of food. I'm a huge foodie. I'm a Londoner. You know, I'm extremely spoiled that I live in London and I get to try all these amazing cuisines, all these restaurants, all these markets, you know, following all the latest Instagram fads to see what's new in town. So I feel like this job really marries. It's like that sweet spot I was talking about, really. Things that I'm passionate about, where I get my purpose from in terms of why I do this type of work. But also, you know, sort of marrying up some of the experience I had beforehand. So even when I talk about my marketing and PR background, I started that, you know, when I was in my early 20s and I was working in travel and tourism. You know, I was so lucky I got to travel the world and try lots of different cuisines and experience lots of different cultures. And I think all of that's really shaped who I am today. So that's a really, and probably drove, the idea of having a street food business. A friend of mine from Japan taught me how to make gyoza, and it was just so exciting
I
and
was
so
going to ask,
delicious.
what was your street food business? Was it?
It was Japanese gyoza, and people went nuts for them. So it was,
Yeah,
a really, really fun time, but obviously gave me a great standing for what we do today at Kerb, basically.
brilliant. That's amazing. I love that. So you practice what you preach, which is great.
Yes.
So maybe before we talk about the social enterprise bit, if we talk about Curb Food, just so people understand that thing, and then what you're trying to do with the enterprise bit on top, which makes it very special.
Yes, that's probably a very good idea because Kerb is not a straightforward business. I mean, we call
No,
ourselves a hospitality organization, which we are, but we are many other things besides. So it's not always easy to talk about. Today, Kerb is effectively made up of three business units. The social enterprise is one of them, and the other two parts are our venues business, which is our food halls and fixed sites. And the other part is our events business, which is very large, private catering, events catering opportunities, basically. The thing I always say about Kerb is that, as well as being a hospitality business and doing all of those things, effectively we are a membership organisation. We have at the moment, approximately 160 independent street food businesses, and our job is to help them thrive and provide them with opportunities to trade. So those venues, those events, and what sits within the social enterprise, is all geared to helping those businesses survive and thrive. We wouldn't be
yeah.
anything without our members. So that's, really at the heart of what we do, but gives you a broad shape of, what the business is doing now.
And so
In terms,
sorry, Lisa, how many venues do you operate as a business then?
oh God, that's a really good question. It's changing all the time.
Yeah,
So Seven Dials Market is obviously our flagship food
that's
hall.
the one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in Covent Garden. It's amazing. There's something like 30 traders in there. It's rotating, every couple of years. So we're keeping it fresh, keeping it relevant. And that's our longest standing fixed site venue. It's been open hilariously, we opened it in 2019. You can imagine how that went during the
Yeah,
COVID
great
years, but
idea,
it's
yeah.
still there. Still thriving, which is amazing. And this year we've opened two more venues. So we have Corner, which is in Canada Water, and we have Kerb Social Club, which is our newest venue, which is out in Old Spitalfields Market in London.
Oh, yes.
We also have, in the last year, opened a food hall in Berlin.
International now.
International, exactly. So from memory, nobody shoot me. Those are our sort of key fixed sites, but it's also a part of the business that I would say is probably growing the most. So in terms of what the future looks like, even in the next 12 months, there might be quite a lot of movement in that space and opening up new venues. That's what we're kind of looking at, knowing that, we need to play to our strengths as a food hall operator.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because you thought maybe post-COVID, you thought that world had peaked a little bit, but it hasn't actually. It seems to be growing as people discover more and more cultures and more cuisines that they want to be able to sample. And that lovely way of doing it, of just like you say, rocking up at Covent Garden at 7 and working out what is the offer today, is
Yeah,
really exciting
exactly.
for people, isn't it?
I think so. And especially, we cannot deny that we're in a very difficult economic climate right now. So while street food isn't, as cheap as it used to be when you compare it to going out to a sort of typical standard restaurant and having a 3-course meal, it's much, much more accessible and affordable. And I think
Hmm.
that's where we're seeing street food is really sort of thriving at the moment. And we're getting there. We're not quite there yet, but in terms of our markets, for example, we're getting close to pre-COVID levels, which is amazing. That's
Yeah,
the aim.
yeah, that's fantastic. So, before we go, because we could delve into that and end up just talking about the different cuisines, which it's not good recording this at lunchtime
No,
either, is it? It's like,
no.
but no. So then explain how the Curb social enterprise then works with the Curb food and the venues and that side of it.
Sure. So I guess the first thing to say is that the social enterprise was established because there was a desire within the senior leadership team, of course, and our founder being Petra Barron, well-renowned street food trader in her own right, really wanting to pay back to the communities that we operate and serve in.
Yeah,
You know, we started off being quite London centric. We're now national, looking at international growth, across the business as a whole. But I think wanting back then in 2022 for the social enterprise and the work we do in our communities to look and feel like the communities, we're in. So looking and feeling like London, and that's, everything in all of it. So in setting it up, we decided the main ambition for the social enterprise really was to remove barriers for people to either work or access entrepreneurial opportunities within the hospitality sector. That was its main aim. Empowerment through skills and training, as we like to say it now.
Okay, so that wasn't necessarily to set your own business up. It could be to work in that sector too, or was it more about?
Yes, yeah, both. Absolutely both. So we are now serving what we call areas of need. We've got 5 of them. So we're helping people from 5 areas of need, which are disability, youth and long-term unemployment, people with convictions, refugees, and those facing or who have faced homelessness.
Wow.
And how we're helping them is through our coaching programs, of which we have 2. So one is Coaching for Work, which is basically a supported employment program. This is where people come in and everyone who accesses our coaching programs has to be referred by a charity. They have to be accessing services from a registered charity. And that in itself is important, because that is then making sure that the people who are coming in and working on our programs have that holistic support that they need outside of the workplace, whether that's access to benefits, housing, money to get on a bus or buy a pair of shoes. You can't survive in the workplace without those things, that infrastructure behind you. So that network of referrers and that support we get from support workers from those charities is crucial to what we do. So effectively, people can be referred into our Coaching for Work program. It's 4 weeks. They'll get exposure to lots of different roles within the hospitality sector within those 4 weeks. So you're talking about things like kitchen porter, floor staff, hosting, obviously food preparation and service, because that's what we specialize in, but also bar back, barista skills training. So it's really, really broad. It's paid at London Living Wage, which is pretty unique, especially in the hospitality sector. And for me, I think the thing that makes it even more exciting is that we have embedded qualified coaches into our coaching programs. So we call it a supported employment program. There is a coach that will work with every single individual whilst they're on placement, working with them to understand what their skills and strengths are. And really, helping them to sort of track and monitor their progress week on week, which is...
And to potentially help them find the area that they're best suited and push them in the direction for a career.
Yeah. And I think that makes a huge difference in terms of outcomes at the end of those 4 weeks. I'd say we're at about roughly a 60% success rate in terms of getting those individuals into employment at the end of 4 weeks. It's always going to be about how many jobs we can get access to.
Sorry, Lisa, that's an incredible figure when
it is.
When you look at the backgrounds of these people and the challenges they're facing.
Yeah.
To enable 60% to get some form of employment after that. Is it a 4-week program initially?
4 weeks, yeah. It's incredible.
That must make you smile as you fall asleep each night, think, oh, there you go, look at that.
It's amazing.
For those listening, there was a huge smile on Lisa's face.
And then that's one of our coaching programs. And then the other one is Coaching for Business. So that's, referrals from exactly the same areas of the need, the same charities we're working with. And for those guys, it's for people who want to start a street food business but have got no idea how to. They'll come to us with a brilliant idea for a menu and more often than not, incredible skills in the kitchen. But they don't know, what is required to set up a street food business.
Yeah.
So that typically is a 6-month cohort cycle. Both of these programs, by the way, are more than 3 years old now and thriving, which is incredible. And over those 6 months, they are taught the basics of how to set up a street food business, looking at everything from what's your vision and your values, what's your USP, how do you cost your dish, what equipment you're going to use, how do you set up your stall, how do you get staff. So all the sort of fundamental parts of effectively writing a business plan. There's a coach embedded within that program as well. We do lots of immersive experiences with those guys. We take them out to our markets. We introduce them to our trader base who, talk about their journey to success, or, what are the pitfalls, as well as, the successes, what are the challenges they're going to likely face in setting up a street food business. We take them in the kitchen and we get them to cook their dish, and we give them feedback on their dish. So it's really, really, again, incredibly supported.
Do you do any sort of buddying up with potential other traders that you can sort of have not quite mentor, but someone you can go, got this, how do I deal with it, sort of idea?
Absolutely, yeah. We try our very best to do that with everybody who comes through the program, because, they have no real life experience largely. So actually putting them on the market for a couple of days with one of our traders to understand what load-in looks like at 8:30 in the morning, or setting up a gazebo in the pouring rain feels like, you've got to be realistic about this stuff. But at the same time, we have that skill and expertise within our membership base, within the business here. So it's really sort of, from our members' perspective, it's like a paying it forward exercise. They can give back. So it's a beautiful symbiotic relationship, I would say. There's always room for improvement, but it's going in the right direction. The thing, again, a bit like where Coaching for Work is unique, because we have the pay and we have the coaches with Coaching for Business. We also have a sponsor, which means that every single person who successfully completes a program can access up to £10,000 to cover their startup costs, which is life-changing.
And is that a grant or is that investment?
It's a grant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. So as long as they've done that bit and you feel there's potential and you've seen that lift, then they could get that lovely leg up to get going.
Yeah. And one thing we're starting this year, which is new to the program, is that we'll run an incubator market with those guys. So once they've got their investment, we will continue to support them to buy the right equipment, to trade on one of our markets. It's not a pathway necessarily into Kerb membership, and we don't want to be self-serving in that way, but it gives them that real life experience of what it's like to, first of all, know your stuff in terms of, legal documentation, HACCP, food safety, equipment setup, all of that, but actually real life trading experience on a market. So, by the end of that 9-week program, they are ready to fly, which is amazing.
That's interesting, isn't it? I know you say you shouldn't just be doing it to try and obviously create your pipeline of new talented food offering. But there's nothing really wrong with that, is there? It's a wonderful, nearly byproduct of that system.
Totally is. Of course it is.
Get this lovely new talent coming through that I suppose, because the other thing, isn't it? Yeah, Kerb Foods is a brand itself that people go along to because they get this incredible experience. If they go 1 week and because this person's not been trained, they're there 1 week and they're gone the next, it impacts on the Kerb brand, to be honest, a little bit, doesn't it? And so
of course it does.
That longevity is crucial.
Yeah, and I think there's all sorts of stuff in there around safeguarding as well, and advocacy. There's all sorts of stuff wrapped up in it. We recognise very well that we're working with people from really challenging backgrounds. £10,000 is a lot of money. Yeah. We want to help them get the best start in life. We're well positioned to do that. So this sort of addition to the program, there's always been ongoing coaching post investment to make sure they're spending money wisely and helping them to go for.
You've got a new car.
Exactly, maybe not that, but maybe a new van.
True.
But helping them to apply for trading opportunities, knowing that that's the first time they'll be doing it, but also it's a highly competitive market. So there's a lot wrapped up in it, and I think for me, some of this talks a bit to my background, which we might go back to, but in between the marketing and PR stuff and coming to Kerb, I was actually running a social enterprise for a mental health charity. So whilst it was a different area of need, we were running work placements for people who'd been distanced from employment due to mental ill health, basically. And obviously safeguarding was so crucial in that role. And in that space, that I learned so much then coming into Kerb and helping set up what we're doing now. I had so much of that experience to lean on in terms of like, how do we really look after these people, make sure that we're doing what we say and doing to the best of our ability with the best interests of our program participants at heart. So whilst it's, for those reasons, it can never necessarily be a route into Kerb membership straight away because our trading standards are so ridiculously high, and we're talking about very, very early stage businesses. Of course, there is a sweet spot in the middle where it does happen, and it will happen, and it will continue to happen.
Yeah, whatever you do, you can't guess everything, can you?
No, exactly. But I guess the other thing I really love about that side of things is that it's what we see coming through in terms of cuisines and dishes is so unique. We've got people with all sorts of backgrounds coming up with mishmashes of their own, like an interpretation of their own culture and heritage, or, which can be anything, especially when you think about London and the diversity of, just the cultural landscape in London. So we get, Lebanese food mixed with Jamaican food, the dishes that are coming through are so unique and inspiring. So, of course, we do have one eye on that in terms of membership, because we always want to be bringing something that is reflective of, the cultural makeup of the world we live in. So it's really beautiful. And I always say this, and it's super cheesy, but I feel super lucky that I get to hear people's stories through the medium of food. I love food, first of all. And, obviously I'm quite passionate about people, bearing in mind what I do in and outside of Kerb. So it's just that beautiful little, moment where I can sit over a dish that someone has created based on their experience and their story. It's just lovely.
So you just, like you say, going back to that, obviously you'd had that varied past the marketing and the PR side, then into that mental health sort of in terms of well-being and that social enterprise. You came into Kerb originally, like, was it head of coaching? Was that the title, or was it in that area to say, how do you start to build out this support network for those two groups that you've identified? Is that how you first got into the business?
Yeah, that was exactly it. I came in as head of coaching. There was an idea that we wanted to do an employment and an entrepreneurship program. That was pretty much it. Yeah. The rest.
Someone scribbled down on the piece on the whiteboard. There you
literally,
go. There's your brief.
Yeah, literally that. So, it was really coming in. We started coaching. We still have a really strong presence at the National Theatre in London, and we still have a programme at the National Theatre in London. But back then we were actually running the food and beverage operation there. So I was really lucky to be able to come in and work with a venue that could provide work placements, was already extremely knowledgeable in terms of safeguarding and, working with people with all sorts of, differences and disabilities, for example, and really leveraging some of that sort of support infrastructure that was already there, bringing in my own experience from my previous role in terms of how we look after these individuals on placement and how we track and monitor their progress, not only for their own benefit, but so that we know the program is doing what it's meant to do,
Yeah.
So yeah,
because it's important to measure that success, isn't it? Like you say, it's not just a box ticking exercise by the organisation to say, oh, we've trained this many people, we've invested this much money, because it's not. That's the measure of success, isn't it? Because if you find the businesses you can invest in, then the whole program's self-fulfilled and works, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. So not quite a blank canvas, but
yeah. Not far off.
Not far off.
I think you're being very polite there, Lisa. I like it.
I loved it. I thought it was an incredible opportunity, so I snapped it up.
It's very interesting, isn't it? I've luckily spoken to lots of different people on this, and some of these guys are the original kind of founders or incubators of these ideas. Others are the experts that are great to then scale it to next level. And I even know that some of those that you think are these great CEOs now, they would have been terrified to sit there with just some scribbles on a whiteboard. They need something formed to then take to the next level. And it's just like, we're all different, aren't we? And that's what makes the world exciting.
Definitely. I don't know having done the last 4 years, I've learned a lot, obviously. But yeah, even a few years leading up to coming into this role, I don't think I would have believed me and myself if if
Yeah.
I told me what I was doing in 5 years' time. So it's been a learning curve, but it's been a really fun one.
It's amazing, isn't it, though, when you nearly you wrap it around something that you're passionate about, as in the food and then the helping of people. It's incredible then what you can achieve as a human being if you're driven, isn't it?
Oh,
And like you say,
completely.
to the fact that you're looking back now and reflecting, going, how have I actually got here? How am I still going?
It is amazing. I mean, some of that is part of my story, I think, as well, because, I was doing marketing and PR for such a long time. In the last few years of that part of my career path, I was running my own marketing and PR agency with a couple of colleagues, but I was just becoming more and more disenchanted with the work and was looking for purpose.
Yeah,
I didn't know how I was going to do that or what it
yeah. You
was I
didn't know what
wanted
that
to
looked like,
do.
but you just
No.
felt what you were doing wasn't right. Yeah,
But this amazing thing happened, right? I found this social enterprise. It was in Hackney, which isn't far from where I live and where I was working at the time. And they had volunteer placements. So I was just volunteering there 1 day a week, partly selfishly because I wanted to learn how to be a sourdough baker, and the social enterprise was a sourdough bakery.
brilliant. Yeah,
But
why not?
also
Back
because
to
I
food
had
again, Lisa.
back to
Back to
food
food. I know.
again, but also because I had this long-standing desire to become a qualified therapist and wanted to get back into that world somehow. So I literally took a volunteering placement 1 day a week, unpaid, absolutely fell in love with it. And 3 months later was offered the job of running the social enterprise. So I literally flipped my career like that. I was very
Sometimes, bet you
lucky.
don't have a chance to think about it. Then do you just do it?
No, I was lucky. I was in a position where I could do that. I don't know. It was a moment in time, and I'll forever look at that moment in time as like, wow, that was such an opportunity. I'm so grateful that I was able to take it, for lots of reasons, but it was life changing and is largely, why I'm sitting here today talking to you. So
So
amazing.
had you started your therapy training and obviously qualifications? Was it during, because it was before Kerb, 'cause I think it was 5 years you said it took, you've been doing it.
Yes, I did my foundation year in something like 2013 or 2014. And then when I went into the mental health charity before coming to Club, so 2020, I think I started the final 3 years of training.
Yeah,
And as I joined Curb, that was my final year and I qualified.
brilliant.
So yeah,
So that's to say you were at a new job and taking all that, and then because I know my wife, I don't know if it's the same qualification, but did the same thing. She's a therapist now, and throughout COVID, did her training at Leeds again,
hmm,
and I know how much that was even around the family and around work and
yeah.
everything. For you to be starting a new role that had those scribbles on the wall and still to finish off that qualification, that's quite an achievement.
Yeah, felt like
I
quite a
suppose you
lot at the
knew.
time, but I
Yeah,
just honestly, I love it. I absolutely love it. I love being a therapist. I loved the training. It was a huge personal journey, as I'm sure you're familiar if your wife's been through it as well. You know, I've learned so much about myself
yeah.
apart from anything else, which has been a massive growth journey, and definitely don't think I could have been sitting here as a managing director of anything if I hadn't done that training. So, yeah, it was a lot, but it was worth it and I loved it. I enjoyed every single minute of it. The biggest challenge was really like going into it, not knowing COVID was going to happen, of course.
Yeah,
And then suddenly everything was moved online. It changed the nature of talking therapies completely,
yeah.
including how you train someone to do that type of work. So it was a real shift in that sector, as it was for every sector, of course. But it was
But it's
interesting.
interesting, isn't it? How it's like you say, post COVID, how it's become much more natural to do things over screens. It's not always great. Sometimes it's lovely to do that sort of therapy, isn't it, face to face?
Yeah.
But I suppose it potentially makes it a lot more accessible to people who are more comfortable to do it that way. And there's been, some like Assured Health and these guys that have come on now and offering these brilliant services to people that obviously, were needed before. It's just there wasn't an actual avenue for people to get help. So
Yeah, that's very
some
true.
good came from those few years. I'm sure. I'm just trying to convince myself to protect ourselves.
I think a lot of good came from it. I know it's hard to say that because it was a really difficult time for lots and lots of people. But yeah, again, I just feel really lucky that I was able to do it. And here I am today.
So how did you find, obviously you talked about coming in, excuse me, as that sort of head of coaching, and then you were then involved was it about 2 years later or 18 months later into the MD's role? How
Hmm.
did you find that change, or was it just like a natural growth that you're like, all right, I might as well do that?
Probably a little bit of A and a little bit of B. I wasn't expecting it at all. It came along at a good time for me, and I think I was ready to take on the next challenge. And also within the 18 months, 2 years prior to that, I mean, I was pretty much delivering all of those coaching programs solo for
Wow.
quite a lot of that time. So, had started to build a team, and that's grown even more in the last, 18 months or so. So I think it was a natural step for me in as much as I now had more resource, other people to deliver the team. I still have huge ambitions to grow the social enterprise, and I want that growth to mirror Kerb's growth as much as possible. So have a footprint wherever Kerb has a venue or,
Yeah.
you know, has operations.
Well, it feels a bit like you drew those three, like the Venn diagram of the business. Now it feels like one nearly can't exist without the other. They self-fulfill beautifully, don't they?
Totally, totally. So yeah, it was a natural step, not one I was expecting or necessarily working towards, but as it appeared, I think I was ready for it. And it's,
Yeah.
the good thing, I mean, there's loads of good things about it, but the stuff I've learned even in the last, 6 to 12 months, I've taken on our markets operation. I look after membership. Obviously, I have a team within the social enterprise to help me do all over those things. So, being so close to coaching was great and is still, a huge passion point for me. But also getting closer to the sort of broader part of Kerb and membership and markets and, how we intersect with venues and events, you know, has been incredible and really
Well,
inspiring when I think about how we can grow the business.
I suppose if you understand the end demand, if that makes sense, for either the venue management or catering or or helping bring on these new businesses, if you can feel that at the pointy end, then you know what to take back to this end of where you're preparing people for that journey where they'll end up. You sort of you've been there and done that and got the badges, haven't you?
Absolutely, 100%. And I always say this actually to the people who start our coaching for business program, especially, it's like when I talk about what the program does and why it's designed the way it is, it's because I think about wanting to have a food business and having done this myself to a certain extent, markets are like the lowest form of entry. Once you've got your food safety qualification and enough money to buy a gazebo, you don't need much else. You just need a
Yeah,
really decent dish and you can get out there and do it. So
yeah,
it's, I guess from that perspective, always exciting to see new people roll out, and give it a try. It's not easy. It's really challenging, especially as the economy does what it's doing right now. And that's, where we have to keep a balance and make sure that people feel supported.
yeah. I think it is because they're going to have
Mm.
days, and especially with the rain that we've got today, they're going to have days when they haven't got many customers. They're going to question, "What am I
Why am I
doing?"
doing this? Exactly. Yeah. So,
Is
I
it
see
a
it. Carry
Go
on.
on, carry on, Lisa,
I was
please.
going to say, I see it as our job to make sure that those trading opportunities are worthwhile. Otherwise, what are our members paying us our membership fees
Yes.
for?
And I also think, what it sounds like you're doing with the coaching, with both obviously the employment side and the business side, is you're building, I know it's a very much overused word maybe at the moment, but you are building a resilience that they understand that this is not all going to be a bed of roses, and you're not going to turn up and sell 5,000 pizzas at lunchtime.
Hmm.
It's going to be some days you've got more dough than what you sold left, and it's like it's going to be
Totally.
painful.
Yeah.
And to understand and be aware of that early on, I think it's really healthy. So then you just go, all right, forget it. It's one of those days. Let's go. And other
Rip it up
days
and
be like,
start again.
yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, even early stage to all the way through to some of our OGs, people who've been trading with Kerb forever or no longer are trading with Kerb, but, have grown into sort of independent restaurant chains, etc. It is like that. Markets especially are like that. You just have you have to roll with the punches. It's really,
Yeah.
really tough, but the good days should outweigh the bad.
That brings me on to a lovely thing because obviously I've had, as I told you, one of my guests on the show earlier is Tom Elliott from Pizza Pilgrims.
I
Who
listened to that one. Yeah,
did you listen to him?
I
Yeah,
did.
he's
Yeah.
great. They're fabulous brothers. No, I mean amazing story. But they were on one of your patches, weren't they, when they started? Is that right?
Yeah, I believe they started out on our markets. It's not true for every single trader that comes to Kerb. Everyone's got their own sort of story, but typically the journey is that you would start in markets, graduate to events where you might need, a second setup or a second kitchen and certainly more staff.
Yeah.
And then to fixed sites, which should be like the fledgling opportunity to go off and have your own fixed site or whatever it is you want to do. And Pizza Pilgrims is like, an ambassador for that journey, I suppose. Yeah.
It's incredible, yeah. And do they, I don't know whether they do have any time, but do they ever have any time to come back and share their story with the startups of today?
Not so far, but let's not rule it out.
We'll give them a ring after this.
Well, give it
Pay them a fancy one.
exactly. I mean, we're
Yeah,
definitely still in touch. A lot of the senior, particularly within the senior management team, hasn't really changed, and there's
yeah.
lots of relationships and connections. That's one of the things I love about hospitality. I suppose you always end up being one big family, right?
No,
So
yeah.
there's still connections and relationships, and whilst we're not talking to Pizza Pilgrims, we have other OGs like the one that comes to mind at the moment is Bleecker Burger. They've just come back into Seven Dials as one of their fixed sites, and alongside many other restaurants they have across London, and
Yeah.
are really, really involved in our coaching programs and giving those work opportunities and coming in and talking to the people on the Coaching for Business program. So we are pulling in those alumni, absolutely. And even though it's only been 3 years, we're starting to get alumni on both programs who came in those first few years, coming back in and being buddies and supporting newbies coming into the program. So, that thing I talked to earlier about paying it forward really is alive and well in the ecosystem of membership and all the other people that access our coaching programs.
That's incredible, isn't it? It's lovely. It's lovely to hear that because there's you've got to remember your roots, haven't you? I always say, careful who you upset on the way up because there will be a time when these people will be back. So that sounds wonderful that you do that.
Mm.
So if you now look into your crystal ball, Lisa, what does the next let's just do 2 or 3 years because with the current economy, I don't think we can get further than that. But
No.
what's on your whiteboard now? What have you scribbled up there for the next
So
challenge?
much, so much on the whiteboard. It's unbelievable, but it's all exciting. I mean, I've already kind of referenced it a little bit. I want to follow Kerb's growth, so I'd love to take our coaching programs over to Berlin. I want to have a coaching for work program in every Kerb venue. We're not quite there yet. So program expansion that
Yeah.
mirrors Kerb's growth. And obviously we've got to see how that pans out in the next 12 to 18 months, but lots of stuff in the pipeline. I want to, and I'm actively looking at the moment at how we add more education and skills training into our coaching programs. So at the moment, our Coaching for Business program is accredited. I want to get our Coaching for Work program accredited. I think the addition of further education and skills opportunities, we could be talking about like accredited trainings. And I think of the things, I always use this as an example, but like knife skills training, for someone to come out of a work program, a work placement and have, specific qualifications that will help them in the hospitality sector
Okay, got you.
would be amazing, but also I think would help us to unlock other types of funding opportunities, which in terms of like how we grow Kerb Plus or the social enterprise is, always the biggest inhibitor. We need more money. It's a not-for-profit,
Yeah, it can't all be self-funded, can it? Yeah, exactly.
it can't. It's not for profit. We're a small team. It's very, very people heavy when we think about resource to deliver this stuff. So, it's finding those opportunities. So, the more brilliant we can make it, the more funding opportunities we should be able to access. And I think things like accreditation will only add to that, ask when it comes to it, basically.
Because it is interesting what you're uniquely doing, isn't it? You could literally set up a qualification in that sort of market, that street food angle that would look great. And I think,
well, we
have
it. We do have it for coaching for business, but we don't have it for coaching for work yet. So
the employment side.
That's what we're working on right now. Yeah. So that should come quite soon. Yeah. I mean, it's just, why would you not?
It makes so much sense when you say it out loud, but obviously common sense doesn't always prevail in the world, does it?
Well, also these things cost money, so it's never as easy as you think it should be. I've learned that.
100%. Yeah, there's a dream, and unfortunately, there is a bit of a reality check to that dream.
Yeah. The other thing I would talk. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all right. It's all right, because I'm going to. Yeah, you do your bit, because I'll come on to mine.
I was just going to add the other thing we're doing, and more will be revealed here with so we do an annual impact report. They're on our website. This year's one will be released around April, May time. And for that impact report, for the first time, we are actually working with a agency to put a monetary figure on our social value. So how much money, for every pound that's invested in our coaching programs, how much is that worth to social services, for example, or the justice system? And again, I think when I think about future growth, that feels hugely important, because it will help us to unlock funding. It will show the real benefit of what we're doing, not only internally and for our candidates, but for the greater, society. So that's coming out in April, and that's going to be I'm very, very excited about that.
That's because obviously you've got a couple of measures that are in that report at the moment about, like, obviously physically how much you've invested into the businesses, which is the lovely figure. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the figures about how many hours of business and employment training and coaching that you've done, which again is a great figure. And you could ask, which is the most important, but I don't think one exists without the other, does it? No. So I won't ask you that. I won't. I suppose that really interesting thought that I hadn't thought of is the idea of, if you get that young individual into a system, into a job, they're not getting benefit, they're not getting into trouble, hopefully, and all of those things that has a massive cost to society, which, if you can put a measure on it, that's incredible.
It's amazing. I mean, the science is still a little bit beyond me. Thankfully, like I said, we've got an outside agency working on this for us. So we're just in the sort of quantitative and qualitative data collection process at the moment, which will all go in and be crunched, and something will come out at the end of that process. But, that's what will effectively gear the shape of our impact report that's coming out in April, May time. So I can't wait to see it. I mean, just from what I've seen in the interim stages, it's incredible.
But just really, like you say, when you have that tough day, you just think, no, this is what we're doing. This is the sort of turbo effect of what we're doing on society, which
100%.
Everything's all right again, isn't it? Everything's all right again.
Yeah.
I love that. Kerb Foods have. What was the driver of Berlin? Was it just one of those happenstance, or was it a strategic landing point for growth?
I'm not close enough to be able to answer that question like 100% correctly. I can tell you what I think I know, which is that probably a bit of both. I know we are actively
as life tends to be, doesn't it?
Yeah, always. I think our CEO is incredibly, our mission as a business, I haven't said this yet, but our mission as a business is to be the most impactful hospitality organization in the world.
Okay.
That tells you everything you need to know about our CEO. Yeah. Hugely ambitious. So we're always looking for opportunities to grow. We know our food hall model works. So we are just looking for new opportunities to deliver that food hall model, wherever we think it will work. So obviously we've got people out there looking for opportunities for us all the time. I think Berlin came along. It was too good to say no to. It's still extremely early days. So we're still building there. But I can't tell you if Simon, our CEO, like put a finger on a map and was like, I want to be in, but I don't know if he did that or well, that'll do. I don't know, what drives
Berlin's
it.
a very cool city, isn't it? It's a very cool city. So
it's amazing.
possibly,
And, we've all had a chance to go out there and see the food hall, which has been amazing. I know, massive perk. But, when I think about our mission to be the most impactful hospitality company in the world, and then I think about like global hospitality companies that do something like we do as a social enterprise, we're talking about hotel groups who have, are represented in like 40 countries around the world. I don't know if we could quite get there, but I think that's
one day.
But that's what I think drives Simon is, how big can we go?
I love that. I think that's great. But like you say, bolting on your side seems, obviously it's not vital day one, but it seems something that should be following within 12 months of that launching. If you can do that sort of monetary qualification of the impact, social impact, that's so, you go to the Berlin Council to say, look, guys, can you help us get this kicked off? Because we've proved this in London. It sounds like it's a no-brainer. The fingers crossed, you'll be out there soon. And then pick a nice warm one for the next one, I think, after what we've been talking about today.
Yeah, Australia.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, they like the food down there. Love it, love it. Right, Lisa, then one last question, because we've sort of run out of time, unfortunately.
No
you've had a fabulously varied career to get there, from the PR, from the marketing, from the counselling, to the support, then a couple of of these amazing social enterprises that you've worked for. You can decide at what stage you want this advice, but is there a piece of advice you wish you'd known when you were a bit younger that you think, if I had that, it could have saved me some sleepless nights or a bit of pain?
It's such a tricky question. It's actually something I was told taking on the MD role here, and I think has served me the best, which is enjoy it. What we do is amazing. It really, really, really is. And that alone is enough to get me out of bed in the morning. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that's guilty of this, but obviously you do get sucked down by the day-to-day and the challenges and everything else. So for me, like, just to keep my eyes on the prize, so to speak, I just have to talk.
I think it's...
And lots of people in the business say this as well, actually. If they're having a shit day, excuse my language, they'll come and talk to someone in the Kerb social enterprise team, because the stories that come out of what we do is phenomenal.
Just reset yourself and get back on track. Yeah. I love that. I think it's right. So it does sound like a cliche, but you're right. We've all got to work, unfortunately. So try and make it the best. I think that's especially to maybe some younger listeners, isn't it? It's just to understand, as you look to seek a career in whatever role, whatever sector is, make sure you've got some passion and some understanding in it, because it'll just feel a little bit better because you're naturally interested in every day.
Yeah, and there's always going to be bad days, That's just how it is.
I found out yours is people and food, so well done, top marks, Lisa. You've nailed it.
Thank you.
Lisa, thank you so much for sharing that, and we wish you best of luck getting out to Berlin and kicking off Kerb Social Enterprise there too.
Thank you so much, Steve. Great to speak to you.